This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everybody, hope you're well. Thanks for tuning in. I've got a conversation with the one and only Kelly Shaefer from Athiest and Till the Dirt to share with you. Now the catalyst for our chat is due to the launch of a debut album from it, Till the Dirt. It is called Outside the Spiral and it's an absolute cracker. So we talk all about the album. We get into the distant past and discuss fallen bass guitar icon Roger Patterson and other topics to do with Athiest. And of course, these days, I quite like talking about topics and subjects on the political spectrum, so we get into that as well. Now, if you've tuned in via the podcast apps, I have a tune to share with you. This one is called Starring Role, taken from Outside the Spiral. Once it's done, we'll dive into the chat. You people on YouTube, you know the drill by now. I can't play music on the platform, so you'll hear the conversation straight away. Either way, let's get to it.
Andrew,
Hey,
So,
brother, how are
buddy,
you?
I'm great, my friend. I'm sorry, man. The last interview went a little longer than it should have.
Yeah, John.
I
John
apologize.
texted me, mate. No, that's all right. You were dealing with a bit of a punisher, were you?
I just Facebook Messenger. I looked you up and found you because I felt terrible.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you'll see a message from me on your Facebook.
Ah, sweet. No worries at all, brother. Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, on that note, you must be. Is it interesting to you or intriguing to you how much interest there is in what you're doing now from Australia?
Oh man, it's a blessing. I mean, I'm certainly not 25 years old anymore, so it's nice to be able to be involved in something that that feels like it has its place, and at the same time feels like you know, I'm moving things forward. So yeah, it's really hard. Whenever you make music, you just hope that people, you hope people like it. And I mean, some people say that they don't care whether anybody likes it, but I do.
Yeah.
I want to make music that people give a shit about. So yeah, it's really exciting, my friend. It's nice. So far, so good. And I waited for 2 years to put this music out. So,
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
nice to hear a little feedback, especially the feedback we're getting. So it's nice.
I think it's
How
the
are
album
you?
of the year so far. Yeah, I'm great, mate. Yeah, great. Yeah, it's just been. I work. I'm a journo during the daytime, and I work from home. So I have your music
Cool.
on, and I often have Athiest on in the background. I've got to say, I'm an old fan.
Thank
So
you.
it was interesting to
That's
hear
awesome.
it was interesting
So
to
what do
hear
you
what you're
think? I mean,
doing
as
here.
as a guy that's listened to Atheist for a while, I mean, how does this? Was it disappointing or was it enlightening, or you know what I mean? Like, how did it feel when you heard the record? What did you expect?
It wasn't what I expected in a very
Cool.
positive way. Okay. So, I mean, there's no point in doing another sort of tech deathy sort of thing like you're doing with Athiest because you've got Athiest as that vehicle. And the band, I've got to say, the band you got around you at the moment, Athiest, is just fantastic.
Thank
Those
you.
live
Yeah,
videos are
love it.
just unbelievable. So, I mean, really honoring Roger's memory and what you're doing. And I think that's what me as an old fan, that's what you love to see. But just on Outside the Spiral, I think it's the album of the year so far. And I'm not just saying that to you. The reason I say that is because great albums, at first you go, what is this? It's a bit like a painting. It takes a long time to absorb it, but then it gets its hooks into you and you keep listening to it. And I'll go a bit deeper. The reason I love it so much is because I'm from the 90s. I'm 45,
Yeah.
so I'm from the 90s, and I grew up with I Hate God, Corrosion of Conformity, Atheist, Stone Temple Pilots, Sponge. I can hear that in the music. So it's not even that it's like a blend of Atheist and those bands that I mentioned, but it's this brand new extreme metal extravaganza that takes its inspiration from some of these 90s alternative sounds. And I think that's a beautiful thing, mate.
Thank you, man. God, it's nice to hear. Because that was it wasn't the intention, but it was the effect that me and Scott Burns felt. At the end of the record. When we were listening to it, we were like, you know what, for better, for worse, this is these are all the things, there's been a period of time where people sort of, I think the last 10 to 12 years, a lot of modern metal, extreme metal fans sort of missed out on the great things about the 90s. There was a lot of really great bands, good songwriters, good moments that were very kind of metal-esque, but they also like dipped their toe in other feelings. Alice in Chains, old Soundgarden, Tad,
absolutely.
Mark Lanigan. There was a lot of sorrow in that Seattle scene. And then I also really loved, the desert rock or desert metal, Caius, Hermano, and the Atomic Bitchwax and stuff like that. I love that old Sabbath-y, and I always felt like, I've always loved both of those kinds of music. To me, they were both equally as heavy, just different. And so in the course of writing this record, I didn't mean to do it that way, but I just think that the automatic, natural things that I love the most came out in this record, and it feels like it's landing at the right time, because something's got to give. Everything has gone faster than it can go, and heavier than it can go, and as cookie monster as you can be, and you know what I mean? It's just, everything is all these perfect records, everything is real pristine and perfect, and the production is just, I don't know. And I feel like this is raw. This is as close to a punk vibe as, not punk rock per se, but the way it was made, was very full of flaws and full of the way you're not supposed to make a record. And I think that shines through on it, and hopefully people will feel that when they listen to it.
Keith Richards has this awesome saying as a muso, and I know you relate to this. It was, be so tight you can afford to be loose. And that's what I feel like you've done on this album.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I make no bones about the fact that there's tons of mistakes. There's tons of, there's moments on this album where the guitars weren't perfectly in tune. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. Leave it that way, because that's how it is live. Every single time you fucking step on stage, that's how it is. You know what I mean? Like, the guitars are never perfectly in tune. They're never synced perfectly. The drums are never perfectly hit. You know what I mean? It's never, ever, ever that way. So why does it need to be that way on a record? I did all these vocals on a handheld 58 mic in my dining room with my 3-year-old sitting on the couch.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like, everything
Beautiful.
about this was done like super old school, as old school as you can be in a digital age. And I love that it came together in that way. So I think that there wasn't a lot of thought of what this was supposed to be or anything. I just started writing during COVID, and I got locked down and just felt a lot of unusual feelings that I hadn't felt as an artist ever. I don't think anybody ever felt that, the things that we felt when we got locked down. I don't know how it was there, but in the United States, it was fucking terrifying. We had horrible leaders and just things were being handled in a way that I didn't really feel like I didn't know if I was going to survive. So I was writing from a desperation place that I don't know that I'll ever get back to. So I'm really glad that I wrote 25 songs while I was in that headspace for this album, or for this band, So I've got a lot of music sitting in the wings. So I hope that people will relate to, the different styles and the hybrid nature. And it's important because you're allowed to do anything artistically. There are no rules. And I like the idea of blending these styles, because I feel like there's a lot of extreme metal people that have a lot of love for Soundgarden. I feel like there's a lot of Soundgarden fans that have a lot of love for extreme metal. And I just think at the end of the day, if it's heavy, it's heavy. Whether it's slow or fast, it all belongs to it all has a place in our heart as metal fans. When you go to European festivals, something that never happens in the United States is, European festivals are full of bands that, you could have Mr. Big and you could have Morbid Angel. You could have fucking, all these different, and the thing I love about European metal fans are just that they're willing to listen. Good music, if it's got an edge to it, then we're into it. We're cool. There's no gatekeeping. There's no, you're not allowed to listen to that if you listen to this. That's how it is in the States, though. It's very segregated, and I don't like it. So, I don't know. I can tell the difference in the press that I've done for this album. For the last 2 days, I've done press exclusively in New Zealand and Australia. Man, you guys are so smart and you fucking totally get it, And I've done a couple of interviews in America where they're just like, just confused, and just like, everybody feels a need to put something in a category. Like, oh, what is this? I don't know what this is. It's like, well, that's good. That's good that you can't immediately put it in a fucking category. That's not a bad thing. It's a futuristic thing, It's a moving of the movement, things have to evolve in order for them to survive. And, back in the early days of Athiest, people used to ask me, like, how do you see death metal moving forward? And I was like, people need to learn how to play. They need to learn, because there was a lot of sloppy playing in the early days of extreme metal. And that's exactly what everybody did. I mean, now you have these virtuoso musicians that are 18, 19 years old that are just fucking stunning musicians. And that we didn't have back in the late 80s and early 90s. And so I would say with this Till the Dirt record, I feel like this is a signal to everyone that you can combine all the things that you love. There's no gatekeeping habit. You can listen to whatever you want to listen to. All music is either good or it's not good. And you can infuse all those elements into your music, and unapologetically, I think you should be able to anyway. But it is hard.
No, I agree, and I think it's so great that you, as a elder statesman, if you like, of the extreme metal genre, someone who was there when it went from being fairly primitive in the late 80s just to what you guys, what Cynic, what Death did, and really bought the genre. The tide started getting higher and higher and higher. And then you brought some other guys along with you for the journey on this one here too. So you got Paul Masvidal, an amazing guitarist, and of course the greatest bass player around these days, certainly maybe the greatest bass player of all time in extreme metal, alongside your fallen comrade Steve DiGiorgio. So can you tell me about how why you involved him in the way where you're listening to some of the songs you were writing, you're going, Steve would be perfect for this?
No, man, I honestly was just writing songs, and those guys are my friends. I talk to them through text all the time. And so it would be like 2:30 in the morning, and I would get, a message or something from like Steve DiGiorgio, for example, is a guy that I've always wanted to work with. I've always had tremendous respect for him and his bass playing. And we've known each other for 30 plus years. We were on the Raging Death compilation together when we were kids. And I sent him this music, and he was really encouraging, along with guys like Gene Hoglan and Jeff Loomis, and those guys were really super encouraging. Like they were like, "Oh, this is really good, Kelly. This is, I don't know what it is, but it's really good." So that was inspiring for me. So once I had a few songs done and I knew it was going to be an album, I reached out to Steven to say, "Hey, man, pick whatever song you want to play on. Will you please play on this record?" He was like, "Fuck yeah." And he chose Outside the Spiral, and he did just a tremendous job on it. Fretless bass. And, I wanted to, Jeff Loomis also is a guy who, I met him, I think when he was 15 years old. He came to see Athiest years ago. And it's one of the nice things about being old is having this constituency of friends that are old and modern heroes. You know what I mean? And so I just literally, as a friend, just said, "Hey man, will you do a solo on this song? I just wrote this song. We check it out." It was very, oh, by the way, there was no like, "Oh, it's going to be on this album. It's going to be this band. It's going to be on this label." He just did it as a friend, and so did Steve. There was no, "Oh, okay, this is going to be on the label or this is going to come out." They just did it because I asked them to. And I love that. I love, it was purely done on a friendship level. And now that it's coming out and it's making an artistic statement, it just makes me really, really happy to have them all involved in this. And John Longstreth is a guy, who's at the top of the food chain in terms of extreme metal drummers. He's not a guy that I know really, really well. He's just a guy that I have a lot of respect for. And I met him on 70,000 Tons of Metal. We developed a relationship. And so while I was writing, I wrote this one song called Insist and Demand. And it was a really weird song. It was way weirder than all the other ones. And the drums that I wrote for it initially were cool and everything. But I thought maybe, like, I was like, I would love to see what a guy like John Longstreth would do on this song. You know what I mean? Like, if I give it, it'll be outside the box of what he's used to playing and what people are used to hearing from him. And so that's exactly what happened. Like he plays his style on a style of music that he's not accustomed to playing on. And it fucking sounds so cool, man. And it's just like, it's like putting people in awkward positions and seeing how they turn out. You know what I mean? Like musically, when you do that, you get some real magic, and that's what happened with John's track, I think. And, DiGiorgio, listen, you could put him on a pop song, or you could put him on he did all the bass lines for the new Megadeth record. I mean, he's just a Johnny on the spot dude, he's just that good. So I never had any worry at all. I just say, "Hey man, do whatever you want to do on the song." And he did it, and it was perfect. And the same with all of them, actually. I never told any of them what to do. The rest of the album, I was very specific about when I had, other people come in and play the rhythm parts. I wanted it to be exactly as I wrote it. But with those guys, I just let them be heroes, man, because that's what they are.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, especially to fans like me. Yeah. What about with the lyrical themes there? Okay, so you're spot on with your comments there about what the US went through, but it was right across the Western Hemisphere, believe me, because I speak to people all over the world, and whether you're in Canada or Britain or the United States or Australia or New Zealand, there's just been this creeping totalitarian left-wing overreach, and we're still under the anvil of it, really, at the moment. I mean, you only have to read, shithead mastheads.
Did you say a left-wing overreach?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You mean so you're more in line with the Republican views?
We don't really have I would be, without a doubt, yeah. But it's definitely more centre right than I think you probably find a lot moderate Republican, I suppose.
So you're sort of into the Trump mentality.
No, I'm not. No, I want to be clear about that.
That's right. Because in the United States, that's the right wing mentality. Left wing is more liberal, more democratic, more. So when you say radical left.
Well, libertarian. I suppose if I had to categorize myself from a United States perspective, it'd definitely be libertarian. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I think that it's good to be a centrist. I mean, that's the place you really want to be. That's where everybody should be. That's how the world used to be, where we could agree to disagree, but not this division that's happening right now in politics. And that definitely played a huge role in this record. Going through COVID and then going through the administration that we had here in the United States was fucking frustrating. And Donald Trump in that era was just embarrassing for this country. And the United States of America should be so embarrassed that they put a guy, a sleazy, slimy guy in charge of such a beautiful.
You don't think Biden is worse though? Honestly, I've got to be frank. I think Biden's far worse.
Oh my God. Worse? My goodness, no. I don't.
Sniffing kids' hair and stuff.
Let's not get into politics, but I mean, it's a pretty easy call to see the difference between Biden and listen. All the politicians, both sides of the aisle, they've all got their secret games going on. So at the end of the day, my problem is the division that they've created between American people. So while you have American people fighting with each other, they're all both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, are stuffing their pockets with special interest projects and siphoning money out of both sides of us while we argue with each other about who it is that we like. But there's no question in my mind that there's a huge difference between the Trump administration and the Biden administration. Like just night and day to me. So I guess we'll have to agree to disagree, my friend.
And that's a beautiful thing, brother. Yeah, no, that's a great thing. And I have lots of these conversations with artists, and one of the things that I'd like to see us move forward into is to embrace the fact that we can have different perspectives and different opinions. And look at you and I. We're both into extreme metal and heavy metal, and that's a great thing that we can talk about these things. I just find, I'll round out the point by saying this. This creep into intersectional politics, critical race theory, these sorts of things is just going to be devastating in the long term. This whole idea that socialism is the answer to what ails us through capitalism is just wrong at the minute. And that's my view on it. And just whether it's, I don't know what's going to happen. Who knows what's going to happen after the next election cycle? It looks like it's going to be Biden or Harris versus Trump again. And it's not a good place for us to be at. I think we can both agree on that.
Listen, I can't even imagine bringing somebody like Trump back into the mix. I mean, it's just, he's rubbed his balls all over democracy and, and the rule of law in this country. And, it just can't happen for another 4 years. He did so much damage to this country and so much division, in my opinion. I wrote, one of the songs on the album is called Invitation. It's one of my favorite songs on the record. And it's 100%, we didn't have to go through the deaths that we went through during COVID. But we did because we had a fucking knobhead, who has no sense at all or no compassion, a guy who's never wanted for anything a day in his life running this country. You can at least look at Biden and say the guy grew up as a normal human being. He's been in politics for long enough now to where he's not a normal human being. He doesn't understand what living paycheck to paycheck is all about. I don't think any of these people do in American politics. And I think that's the real problem. My goal is that I hope that people can come together and realize, what, we're both sides of the aisle. We're both tired of all of you, of all of the people running this country, running the United States, siphoning from our taxes and spending it on things that, our military budget, for instance, is just staggering. I mean, you should see the amount of homelessness in the States. Where are you? Where are you? Are you in
south of Brisbane?
Where are you?
That's right. South of Brisbane in Australia.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So a staggering amount I was just on tour with Cynic and we did a whole North American tour and, the amount of homelessness, and not everybody that's homeless is a fucking drug addict. People live very close to the edge. in this country, and then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And then you have 1% of this country that lives, in the middle. And very far from the edge. And that's, the inequality of that is really staggering at this point in the United States. So anyway, I really hate to kind of get into that. I just love music, man. You know what I mean? And it's such a divisive discussion that, and it's really hard to have without getting hostile, because I feel very, very angered about the Trump administration and the fucking corrupt criminal people that he had run this country for a number of years, and the fact that we're still talking about it. Not to say that Biden is cream of the crop, but he's certainly handled at least a little bit of he's brought a little bit of the presidency back to what it should be. But it's never been, and Clinton was the last guy to me that ran a country that at least was economically viable for everybody. Everybody did well. Everybody made money. Bill Clinton was a good president. Obama was a good president. To me, was a great president. Flawless 8 years. No scandals, no bullshit, no indictments. I mean, we're talking about a guy that has 96 fucking felony counts right now he's facing. Tons of sexual assault accusations that, anybody that knows Trump. I've watched Trump. I'm 55 years old. I've watched this asshole for a lot of years, I don't know if you have, but he's one of the worst human beings to ever walk the face of the earth, in my opinion. So that's the last guy I want running this country. He doesn't represent democracy or patriotism. He's not a guy that I'm a fan of. So I guess we should just agree to disagree.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, it's always good to talk about these things, though. I mean, I think we've got an obligation, if you like, to, if we have an opinion, and here's a key point, not to self-censor.
Yeah. I still love you. You still love me. We're still good.
Exactly, brother.
Yeah, it's okay to debate these things, because believe me, I have I side with a lot of Republican qualities, but I don't side with Trump qualities. That's not Republican to,
No, I can agree with you on that. Don't worry. Yeah.
Ronald Reagan was a guy who was very Republican, but I disagree with a lot of his policies, but he was also very, he you used to be able to work these things out left and right. Now it's just, now it doesn't matter what's right and wrong. It's just left and right. And you can't abide by a policy that a Democrat agrees with, or a Democratic Party is trying to put across, just because you have to agree with your side. That's where everything has gone wrong.
Yeah,
so
ideologically motivated. That's an issue. Yeah, I know that's a real issue. Yeah, and the way people, to your point about the Trump thing and even the squad thing, so Ocasio-Cortez, the way people sort of fall in line with their views because ideologically they're motivated that way, rather than doing what you just mentioned, which is actually sitting back and actually listening to what the value in the policy is, and then making a judgment call on that one there. So I know, and the other thing, and the final point I want to make about it all is I would love to see people go back to having a very healthy cynicism of governments, regardless of who's in power. Okay, this whole idea that you have to have a flag out the front of your house with Trump on it or Biden on it or what have you is just nuts.
Yeah, of course. I mean, listen, this fandom, has never been an issue with any other presidency that I can recall in my years of I'm sorry, I have moving to a different part of the house.
You're right.
So I just think that I have to plug in my phone so I don't lose you.
No worries.
I'd love to see, it return to an era of, where we can at least agree to disagree and agree to sort of meet each other halfway. I don't think that's been in effect for the last 10 years. It's just gotten really, really bad. Can you see me okay?
I can, yeah, no worries at all. Yeah, it's the decline of, it's this rise of secularism, the decline of traditional religion as well. I mean, you probably, like me, you grew up going to church and stuff, and that gave us a very solid foundation, and meaning that we place. Jordan Peterson has a saying that I don't think is his; he's repurposed it, and I'm paraphrasing. It's for what is Caesar is for Caesar, and for what is God is for God. Okay, so never shall the twain meet, and they shouldn't. Okay, so you shouldn't raise these ideological positions, and therefore the people that are at the head of the table of these ideological positions, as higher than God or even equal to God. Okay, because they're not. They're human beings. They're fallible. They're completely corruptible. We know that, but it's to your point, and I've long said this actually in my own conversations with people. It's like it's moved into fandom. what you just mentioned, like these fans, they're ideological fans, and people will support no matter whatever is encompassed within the ideology. They will back regardless of the common sense perspective, and that's it's crazy, mate. That
that's where shit goes south. Yeah, we can't have that. And also in the United States, what's happening is the separation of church and state is, those lines are being blurred now by, I live in Florida where we have Governor DeSantis, who is a fucking fascist. The guy is literally dictating what I have a 6-year-old son who goes to school. He wants to hang the 10 Commandments in the classrooms. It already says, "In God we trust," in the office of his school. I have a fucking big problem with that. Our forefathers put in place the separation of church and state for a fucking reason. There are 490 plus denominations of religion. It's a belief. It's not a fact. And the denial of science in the United States is a staggering detriment to this country, to the world, really, because the United States is supposed to be, a leader in moving forward and trying to preserve the planet and our ability to live here. And I've never been more embarrassed to be an American, and I know a lot of people will fucking get cringe about that, but I'm embarrassed that we've allowed this country to become a TMZ country. Do you know what TMZ is?
Yeah.
Like in America, TMZ is like it's gross, man. And so the rule of law has just gone out of the room. And it's just really about, and I don't think that, it's very dangerous when there's a real cult-like quality that's happening with this Trump movement and the Republican movement in the United States. It's to the point where, and there's not a lot of intelligent people on that side of the coin, man. I mean, when presented with facts, they still go, you know what? I don't care. He's my president. And that's dangerous. That's not, presidents aren't supposed to be carrying that kind of weight for people to put all that weight into. I just, anyway, I'm surprised there aren't more punk rock bands out right now, because you remember the 80s and Reagan, that whole era created so much great punk rock. People were so fucking angry.
Yeah.
But I can't believe that that punk rock hasn't made like real punk rock, not Green Day bullshit, but like real punk rock hasn't made a resurgence, because there's a lot of shit to be angry about. And so maybe metal in a small way, portrays a little bit of that. I know that I did a couple of times on this record where, it's always hard too, because you automatically know if, like I said, I had that song Invitation on the Till the Dirt record. It's very anti-Trump. So automatically I know that 50% of the country is going to hate that song. But you really got to take that risk. You got to say, hey, look, whether you agree with me or not, this is how I feel. And I'm entitled in this country to say how I feel about something. And, if you want to debate it, let's debate it. We don't have to hate each other over it, but we can debate, not hate. That's what this country needs more than anything, is the ability to agree to disagree.
Just have conversations like what we're doing now. Let this be a beacon for people listening, and say, hey, just have a conversation with someone who has a different perspective than you. It's not even about learning things. It's about just being civil. It's about breaking bread and reaching across the aisle and shaking hands.
From each other. Yeah, you may say something and I go, you know what, you're right. And that's the key too, to know when you're wrong, know when you might be wrong, and say, you know what, you might be right. I don't know. Here's how I feel now, but what you say makes sense to me. Let me think about it. And let me go on, but it's not. It's fuck you, and fuck Biden, and fuck let's go Brandon, and this stupid TMZ quality of just really, really I don't know. I can't explain it. It's really bad in the United States, and I don't know really how to describe it, but I don't know if it's that way there, but it's a really scary time in America. I mean, we're on the verge of a civil war. Even
you think so? Do you feel that way?
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, listen, if the shit goes down with Trump, it's about to go down with all these indictments. I don't think it's a stretch to think that there's going to be there's going to be a bit of a civil war between the parties, because as well as I do from past experience that if he is able to run again and he loses, which I feel he will, they're not going to accept it. And that's been always the foundation of democracy, is the ability to, to accept the outcome of an election. And when you get to the point where you can't trust your elections, now you're in a third world political mind frame. And man, I never in a million years imagined that we would get to that place. So it's kind of disappointing and heartbreaking. But I tell my mom is 78 years old, and she watches the news every day, and she gets so angry, and we talk about it all the time, and the things that make us angry. And I tell her that, just don't worry about it, Mama. You're 78. Just enjoy your life. You've had a great life. You worked hard, done great things. You know what I mean? You're not going to have to be around to see it. But I think about my little boy and how, what his life is going to be like at 40. I don't know. I just can't imagine. He's 6 right now. So, 36 years from now, I can't imagine what life is going to be like. When I think about 36 years ago and how life was and how different it is now, both technology wise and politically, I can't imagine what 40 years from now is going to be like. But I won't be here. But I definitely I find a lot of room for songwriting in the anger and the frustration of it.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing you, mate. And we're better off for it, because look at this great album that you've, however you're inspired to create the music you are, let it continue to inspire you based on what you've done here with Outside the Spiral. So I want to ask a bit of a different question for you, because as I said, I am an old fan. I've had an awareness of you now for decades, and you're one of those artists. I went through a boarding school, and I'd hear your music late at night, lying in bed there and listening to it, and just, you're in far-flung Florida, and I'd always sort of imagine watching you guys live, and I haven't had that opportunity to do that yet, obviously, with Athiest or Till the Dirt yet. But one of those players who, just being a bass player, that just really rocked my socks and still does, is Roger Patterson. So what can you share about Roger that hasn't been mentioned, or that you feel needs to be mentioned about him as a person?
So Roger was my roommate. Like, before he died, before we went on that tour, he was my roommate, and probably one of my best friends. He was just, I guess, it's funny how people get immortalized in death, and people will think a particular way. But if I were to say anything about Roger, is he was a simple, very simple, unassuming talent. So like, he was just this kid who loved to smoke cigarettes and get high and play metal. Like, it was that simple. He didn't want to work. He didn't want to, he didn't want to try to find a career. All he wanted to do was play bass, smoke cigarettes, and fucking get high and hang out with his girlfriend. It was that pure and that honest. And I think that, man, that's a really, maybe some people will be like, oh, it's no way to live. That's not very responsible. But it created this incredible musician, because all he did was sit on the edge of his bed and play bass. And, he wrote from a point of purity. And, while he was influenced by a lot of things that you would never hear in his music. Like, he was a big Gene Simmons fan. Like, I fucking hate Kiss. Like, I don't like Kiss at all. And I don't like Gene Simmons as a human being. I never thought he was a great bass player. I never had respect for him, but Roger loved Gene Simmons. So you wouldn't think a guy with the complexity of, Roger's ability to love a guy that played so simple. But he did, and so I think that's something I would love for people to know about Roger is, he was not interested in building a career, or maybe he would be an insurance guy someday, or maybe after music's over, he's going to be there. No. It was music or nothing for him. And I think that's it's a pure quality, it's organic, and I always respected that about him, and I don't think a lot of people, it's been 32 plus years that he's been dead. It doesn't really get told very often about him, but just an incredible natural ability to play, very uninfluenced, but at the same time influenced by the right things. Like, he had good bones, so to speak, in terms of his, the guys that he grew up listening to. Whereas a lot of modern metal guys, their history starts with extreme metal. Like, they don't go back to the Deep Purples, to the Zeppelins, to the, to all that. And I would encourage all young 16 to 23-year-old extreme metal kids to go back, listen to Zeppelin, listen to Deep Purple, listen to all that shit, Uriah Heep, you're going to find a lot of great qualities to incorporate into your modern metal if you go back to those influences. And so Roger had a lot of those.
Was Tony the obvious choice to replace it, or did you have to really go through a rigmarole to find somebody?
Well, there weren't a lot of people back then. I don't know how old you are, but it's I always say that there wasn't a talent pool; it was a talent puddle, and there weren't many people that could play bass like that back then. So Doug Kaiser from Watchtower was the first guy that we asked because he had come to the show about 10 days before Roger died, and we were all huge Watchtower fans, and Doug Kaiser was I was hard pressed to find anybody that plays bass any better than that guy. I mean, he was just fucking unbelievable. And so Roger got a Polaroid. That's how old we are. He had a Polaroid picture of him and Doug, and he got buried with that photograph. So, Doug Kaiser was the very first guy that we asked. And Doug was like, yeah, it's not my style. And he didn't realize that, that Athiest would be a band that would end up surviving the 30 years or whatever. So he didn't do it. So yeah, Tony Choy was, Cynic was our sister band, so to speak. They were the first band that we met in the scene that we felt a kindred nature to. We were listening to the same music. We subscribed to the same philosophy of, jazz fusion, complexity mixed with extreme metal. And, the early Cynic was very heavy and much different than the modern Cynic, which is extremely technical but not as heavy. So, but we were different bands. But I think that Tony Choy was just the guy that we knew could do it, and he did. He did a fantastic job. We had 8 weeks to from the time Roger died to the time we recorded Unquestionable Presence, and we had demos because a lot of that material was already written. There was just a couple. And The Psychic Saw and Mother Man were two songs that weren't quite finished. And Tony helped us finish those songs. So, yeah, he but different styles. Tony was more of a slap bass player, more Latin influenced, more rhythmic, less aggressive, less attack. Roger attacked, like he played like very hard, used all five fingers, which you don't see a lot of bass players do. He used his pinky and everything on his picking hand. He was just a really aggressive player. So Tony played with a little more finesse, and had because he was Latin, he had just a natural rhythmic quality to him that was different than Roger. But he did a fantastic job. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. It's very interesting seeing those videos of Tony playing in that. It's a Latin pop band, isn't it? He goes from you guys and then he's playing a pop band, which is their version of a boy band in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, that was one of the things that kept him from, being a part of the early 2000 era of Athiest. He was playing on cruise ships and doing different things. And, Tony's always been about the business side of music. Like, some of us we'll do it for 15 cents, we'll do it to lose money. Tony was always a guy that was very interested in making it worth his while. And I don't mean that as a disrespect. I just mean that in order to get into play, you had to have enough money involved for him to, because he had other opportunities to go and make money. For me, it's never been about money. It's always been about the metal. And so even if it cost me, I would still do it. You know what I mean? I don't know any other way of life. I love it so much that I would pay to do it.
No, that's great. That's what we love about you,
I'm in a lot of ways paid to do it.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah. Why did you decide to regroup the band in the early 2000s?
So when I got done, I was in a band called Neurotica, and we had a really good run for about 8 years. And we signed with Vince McMahon and a WWE label called SmackDown Records. And we played Athiest in 2002 and had some moderate success on the radio. And when that band broke up, I just kind of, I didn't think anybody cared about Athiest anymore. I didn't have any of the albums anymore. I didn't have copies of them. And so that was in the early days of the internet. And I went on eBay and tried to buy copies, and I realized they were really expensive. They were like $150 for a used copy. And I thought, It's terrible, and I knew that the original label that had put those records out breached contract and never paid us for any of those old albums. And so I took a chance and started my own label and bought recordings of the album and basically bootlegged, the Athiest albums and created new versions of them, remastered, and with new liner notes and new art, with Relapse and licenses to Relapse. And when it came out, it was I just realized that people had not forgot about Athiest. The internet had created this new group of young metalheads that were just discovering it for the first time because of the internet. And I just didn't realize that was the case. And so once I did, we decided to do a bunch of shows, and then we did some festivals, Bach and Hellfest. And we realized then that there was this young constituency of metalheads that were, that really understood it. For the first time, they appreciated the technicality. We weren't the outsiders anymore, because many times back in the early days of Athiest, there was no one they put us on tour with Candlemass and they put us on tour with Cannibal Corpse. There was nowhere to put us. There was no band package that fit for us. And so, so now fast forward to 2005 or 6, and, there's an appreciation for technical metal now. There's a lot of bands, what used to be just a stump is now this tree with all these branches of all these different kinds of technical bands. And so we didn't know, that was the case until we went to Europe and played those shows. And we came home and just we were like, wow. And so for a few years, we just played shows, and we were offered to do a new record. And we just didn't know that we'd ever be able to recreate that same vibe, that same quality, and we didn't want to mess up the the legacy of the band. So it took a lot. It took Michael Barbarian from Season of Mist, who I give him all the credit in the world, because he just stayed on us and said, please do a new record, please do a new record. And he finally, he just said, look, here's the money, do a new record. So me and Steve, I flew to Atlanta, Georgia, and we got in a room together and we wrote Second to Sun from Jupiter. It was the first song we wrote together. And I realized at that point that there was a tremendous chemistry that was still there, that we didn't realize was there. And so that was a lot of fun, to write that record and come back and after, I don't know, 15 or 16 years of being gone. And, it brought back a lot of memories and a lot of fun. And with Athiest, you can kind of do whatever you want to do. There are no rules and what we're allowed to play. So that was a refreshing feeling, coming away from what I had just come from with Neurotica, which was, rock radio, slash metal. And, it was just a different industry. So, so we made that record and I just, none of us ever expected any of that to come to fruition. So it happened very organically.
Apart from music, you're also, I'm aware of your artwork as well. So would you say that you're a musician who dabbles in art, or you're an artist that dabbles in music, or is it something that is in between?
So I started off in high school playing, painting. So I went to a performing arts school, and before I played guitar, I was painting and drawing, and I thought that maybe I would be an artist, and that would be my thing. And I always loved drawing and painting and creating. And I saw this guy in my high school that was playing guitar, and all these girls were sitting around. I was playing guitar, and I was like, shit, there's never anything I'm ever going to paint or draw that's ever going to make 8 chicks sit around me. And so, when you're young, that's the stupid shit you think about, and so that's what made me start playing guitar. And I was like, man, I want people to sit around me on a stool while I'm playing Zeppelin or whatever. And so I would have to say that I'm both. I'm an artist who plays music, and also I dabble. I guess I got a leg on the dock and a leg on the boat.
Yeah, it's a good way of describing it, I think. Yeah. Anybody go and check out Kelly's art actually out there, because it's some good stuff. I like what you do. Actually,
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean,
in
you've
that
got
time
this.
where I wasn't able to make music, that was the time, especially when I first had my daughter in 2006. I was 38 years old, and I was like, it was my first child, my first child that I've had to take care of. I have an older son who I didn't meet till he was 17, but it was the first child that I raised, and so I was home a lot, and I couldn't smoke in the house. I could smoke in the garage, and so I set up an easel, and I would have a canvas out there, and every time I went to go smoke a cigarette, I would work on paintings, so I did like 100 paintings in a 2-year period. And
Okay.
so I'm just that way. Like when I get on a binge, almost like a drug addict, except a positive drug addict. It's not drugs, it's art. So I'm an art
Yeah.
addict.
Yeah, you get the serotonin kick from it. Yeah. Have you jumped
I really do.
Have you jumped over to the Adobe suite yet, Photoshop and Illustrator, and started doing art on them?
I have not. I struggle with that because I feel like there's a little bit of cheating involved in that. You know what I mean? Like I really love I love the natural. I love the flaws. I feel like digital art, there aren't many flaws in digital art. There's too much safeguard, too many nets under the wire. I mean, I like mistakes. I think some of the greatest moments in art are mistakes. And so I haven't really dabbled in any of that at all. I do appreciate people that are great graphic artists. I use them on a regular basis, to put things together for me for social media. But I love just a canvas, a guy, some paintbrushes, and some color, and whatever happens. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 5 years from now, it is. In all honesty, it's a world that I don't understand very well. The Photoshop world and what's possible, and I do see some incredible things that are done with that, but it's just not in my headspace for some reason yet. Maybe it will be in the future.
Yeah, check it out. I think you'd be really good at it based on what I've seen. And it takes some time to get used to. I work in a lot of photoshopping, but I've in the media space, not in the creative space, if you like. All of my own artwork for the show I do in Photoshop and Illustrator as well. And once you learn a few tools, it's as much time in the day and in your life as you've got. You can keep on learning things with these things. They're unlimited, is what I'm saying. So you can do very basic things like what I do, or you can go much more complicated, like what an artist called Mark Cooper, one of your fellow Floridians, what he does. He paints these vast universe spaces that look like as though you're in an acid trip.
Well, I think that if you look at the Outside the Spiral video, that was done by a friend of mine named Jordan Hartman, who, obviously AI is this fickle thing that everybody's sort of either into or not into. And there's a lot of varying opinions about AI art and the huge influx of what's happening with AI, and I'm on the fence about it as well. I know it's gonna change everything the way the internet changed everything, and so I think I don't know. I would probably dip into I'm more intrigued with the AI than I am the graphic art aspect. I don't know how similar they are. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking out of line, but
no, very similar. No, you can I can put in a few key search terms into a few things like ChatGPT, and it'll bring up art. And then you just tailor it from there. It's basically turning people who aren't artists into artists in a way.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's a positive quality in a way, because I know how it makes me feel to create something. And there's a lot of people that aren't creative that I wish that I could give them a little creativity so they could feel what I feel when I create something, because it is an unusually great feeling to create something from scratch, even if it is digital, and you're not creating it from scratch. You're still putting your own twist on something, and the average person's not going to be able to do that, and feel good about it, because they can barely draw a stick figure. But if you could take Chat GPT and say, I don't know, I want to see a Viking in a desert with dolphins, and all of a sudden it creates something, and then you take that and then take it somewhere else, then at least you can use your creativity, even if you weren't the person who created the actual art that you're looking at. You steered that art in a particular direction. So I think that's a positive.
Yeah, I think you got a great take on it. That's what it is. There's a lot of artists that are very afraid of it, but it'll start to influence itself. It'll start to be inspired by its own creations at some point, this artificial intelligence, and it won't even be drawing on the greats Michelangelo and this sort
Well,
of thing.
let me give you an example. I mean, on the Till the Dirt record, I used all plugins for the guitars. So all the the guitars that you're hearing are plugins. So they're not. I'm not sitting there with a cabinet and a head and a microphone on a speaker. You know, I mean, a traditional sense in a room, where, you capture this sound. The sound has already been captured, and I just used that captured sound. So that's AI. I took a sound that, oh my God, this sound is great on my guitar. It makes me play in a particular way. Those sounds inspired me to write the riffs that are on that album. So, a person who's not an artist could also take an image and say, oh, this would be so much cooler if I could do this to it. And the fact that you can do that to it makes it their own, and allows them to be able to experiment with something that's predispositioned. So I'm working with a really great Mesa Boogie head with a perfect cabinet, and a perfect mic setup. And I can just crunch through my riffs, and it sounds a way that I probably wouldn't be able to create if I bought my own rig or if I went to a studio and tried to set it up. You know what I mean? The best producers in the world have created these plugins that are and they spend a lot of time capturing and modeling those sounds. And that's very much AI, I think, in a lot of ways. So I guess I'm guilty of using it as well. But it's all in how you use it. Using art. Yeah. Just take it. As long as you're moving it forward, then to me, I'm cool with it. It's all about people that lean on the boulder as opposed to moving the boulder. I'm just a fan of that.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, no question. Yeah. Look, I'll make this my final question for you. So you obviously know now that there's a huge buzz around what you're doing with Till the Dirt and indeed this album, Outside the Spiral. So is it in your future? Is it a possibility that you're going to bring that down and maybe even Athiest as well?
Absolutely. 100%. I can tell you that, our management's already working on a trip to Australia, New Zealand, Japan next year. We want to come over and play. We have a 30th anniversary set. I mean, the guys that are in the band right now with Athiest, 3 of the guys are in Till the Dirt with me as well. So, it's just a great group of musicians, really good human beings, super talented, young visionaries. I just can't say enough about them. So yeah, both bands. I mean, Till the Dirt is not a side project. It's not a, it's a fucking band, and I can't wait to play these songs live. I feel, it's the first record I've ever made where the songs weren't ever, typically you write a record and you play it, you rehearse it and then you record it and then you go out and play it live. This was all created in the studio, almost like Steely Dan, in a way. And so nice. I've never been able to hear this music played. It's never been performed. And so I look forward to that. I feel like these songs are only going to get better because, in a live setting, I feel like they're going to be heavier and more effective and impactful. So yeah, both. At minimum, you will definitely see Athiest in 2024 in Australia. And, we have a great relationship with Pull the Plug Patches, Simon, and he's over there, and he sponsored our North American tour. That company did, and so yeah, we hope to be able to have them sponsor the tour and get over there as soon as possible. It's been far too long. We should have been there years and years ago, but at minimum, you'll see Athiest, and hopefully, if everybody likes the Till the Dirt record and everything continues to be as exciting as it has been, then we'll be able to. The cool thing about it, like I said, is that anywhere Athiest is, Till the Dirt is almost there as well. Yeah. All those guys are in, the same guys are in the band. So, we could very well come over, do a couple of Athiest shows, stick around for a couple of days, and then do a couple of Till the Dirt shows. And so that's kind of a cool situation to be in. So yes, cannot wait to come down there.
I hope that happens, mate. But in particular, I'm really keen to hear. I love Athiest, but I love this album too. So I'm really keen to hear how you bring this one to life, and you've been very intelligent about it from the perspective that you're sharing band members across both projects. So I mean, I know it's tough for you because you've got they're very different styles of music in a lot of ways, and who was I speaking to that did do two shows? So the point's going to be redundant now because I can't remember who it was. But someone that I was talking to not that long ago in the last 12 months, I was actually doing that. There was two bands and they had to open for themselves effectively and then go on. And they did say, Devin Townsend also told me when he was doing all of his stuff and trying to combine it, really took it out of him so he wouldn't do it again. So, but Australia, well, there's only really 5 cities to play down here. So, maybe it could happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it in the same night. I would do them in separate nights. I would never do like Till the Dirt and Athiest in the same day. I feel like, I would just set up 2 separate nights because they really are 2 headspaces altogether. But using the same musicians, to me, as long as those musicians are, high quality, able to play anything, there's no point in me looking elsewhere. Like, I love the guys that are playing with me in Athiest right now. They're so fucking good, and they play this music better than we played it when we originally wrote it. And just the precision picking and the timing and the energy that they bring to this music. So the same applies to Till the Dirt. Even though they didn't write it, they're playing it with a fire and a fury of a young man. You know what I mean? And that's what's needed. And also they have a technical capability of pulling it all off. So I think at the end of the day, that's my only requirement. So there's really no need to go and find it entirely. Another 5. It's really hard to find 4 people to be married to in a musical marriage. Yeah, so once you find the 4 that you really love and care about, there's no reason to go find 4 more just because it's a different band. As long as those guys are great musicians and they're able to play different kinds of music, and they are, then that's why 3 of them are Until the Dirt with me. So I cannot wait to come down there. So I look forward to sharing a beverage with you, my friend.
Absolutely,
and we can talk
brother.
shit to each other about our opposite political beliefs.
I look forward to it, mate. It'd be great to catch up and have a beer and continue that type of a conversation.
Listen, thank you so much for your early love for Till the Dirt. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having an open mind and letting me be somebody different as a musical fan. Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Mate. No, my pleasure, mate. And thank you for making the music that you've made. It's been a companion for many years, decades. So there you go.
That means the world to me. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. All right, we'll have a great rest of the I suppose it's the evening there, so great rest of the night, mate, and see you down here soon.
You as well. See you soon. Cheers.
Thanks, brother. Well, there you have it. The great Kelly Shaefer, everybody. Proof that you don't need to share the same political views to have a killer conversation. Yes, indeed. I wish a bit more of that would go on out there with my fellow podcasters. It's important that every subject is on the table and we do not self-censor. Okay, there are far more conversations similar to that one over at scarsandguitars.com, and whilst you're there, check out the link in the banner which will take you to a marketplace where you can download a copy of my book, because I know you're a smart audience. You don't just like listening, you like reading too, and there's proof of that because many of you are buying the book. You can download a sample, and if you do complete the purchase, hit me up because I want to thank you personally. There's some more information to share with you about the book in the moment. Before we get to that, I'll bid you a farewell. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast. Until next time, it's a goodbye for now.
This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Coal Chamber and why the band will never return.
If you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words there. Sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Coal Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not going to be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing, complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuck Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
My name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot. And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.